Hello and welcome to the first episode in what I hope will be a new series that I will call Bookworm's Bower. And the reason why I'm calling it Bookworm's Bower is back when I first started on the internet, I started a website and I had different little sections in that website. And one of them was for my desire to read, my love of books. And I called it Bookworm's Bower, and I've got some good feedback for that. So I decided, you know what, I want to, I want to do something with that. And so this is kind of harkening back to that time period. This will be a monthly, probably feature. What I'm going to do in this episode, this monthly feature, it's going to be once a month, is I'm going to show you all the books that I'm currently reading, all the books that are on my shelf, give you an idea of everything that I'm looking at and going through. So let's start. Okay, we will begin with books that I refer to as a category. I call them channeled texts. And a channeled text is a text that the author has actually channeled or claims to have channeled an entity or entities and then written or had something written through that connection. The Jane Roberts Seth books would be examples of those. There's a Barbara Marciniak, The Pleiadians. There's Ramtha, done by J.Z. Knight. And then there's Paul Selig. And these books, they're very hard. They're easy to read, they're easy to understand. They're not a hard read, but for some reason they're hard to complete and go through. And they promise a lot, like, you're going to be transformed energetically as you read them. And I think that some of that's going on. But the way that it paces and the way that you go through stuff, you expect to be at some transformational point by the end of the text, and your life is largely the same, or at least that's been the case for me. Still want to read all of them. He has a new series coming out. He has 3 books that were his first 3. Then he did the Mastery Trilogy. Here is the first 3 right here. Book of Love and Creation, which is not the first one. I Am the Word is his very first book as far as I know. I believe Book of Love and Creation is number 2, and then Book of Knowing and Worth is number 3. And one of these I had once from somewhere, had the ragged edge printing, and that was desirable. I really like that. These are been ordered from new for the Canvas Library, and they don't have that ragged edge for whatever reason. His next trilogy was the Mastery Trilogy, starting with the Book of Mastery, the Book of Truth, and the Book of Freedom. And his next 2 are Alchemy and Realization, or something like that, in his new series. I don't know if I'd recommend these books. If you're able to withstand, tolerate, if you're tolerable to a text coming through an outside physical entity, that doesn't offend or bother you, then these are interesting to look at, but I don't know if they'd be my highest recommendation. I'd probably still point to Seth, but Seth is very difficult to get through. Ramtha is very interesting. These books are very loving. I like how they're written, but I just don't know. So, one of the things I like to have at my bedside, I like to have it nearby. I am also somebody who likes to study astral projection, out-of-body experiences, and lucid dreaming. And one of the authors that I actually used the shamanic drumming technique to do my first dream reentry, I used this process for doing it and was successful in doing that. And it's very rare when I follow a process in a book and I actually have a success of some kind. That doesn't happen very often. But with this guy, I did. I did try to contact him once. He was extremely rude to me. His email back was something about he was much too busy to talk to me about anything that I wanted to talk to him about. He's an older gentleman now. Hopefully he's still alive and well. Very good books, worth recommending. Robert Moss. And I have Mysterious Realities. I have Conscious Dreaming. I think this is the one that I learned how to do dream entry. And I have Dream Gates. He also has some other books that I do not have. But these are books that if you're into lucid dreaming or want to learn how to become lucid and you are interested in shamanic techniques and shamanism, there's a little mixture of all of that in here, a little bit of that, and it's also kind of grounded. It's not like the Carlos Castaneda books, which are kind of out there. This one's more grounded. It seems more real. It's hard to get a hold of that 80-minute. I think it's an 80-minute shamanic drumming session. So leave a comment below if you need a copy of that. I don't know if you can actually buy it anymore. I'll have to look that up. Maybe I can put it somewhere where people can get a hold of it, because it's nice to be able to try that and to do some shamanic journeying and get into that state. There's all kinds of interesting places to visit. I might have even learned how to create my own little area in the dream world or something with my dream tree. That might have all come from this guy. But I stopped reading him. I've had him on my side by my bed for a while, and I just haven't done much. I cracked it a little bit, but I just haven't gotten very far. He also has some other interesting books. I want to say one of them's The Three Only Things, although I might have that title wrong, and that's about coincidences and stuff. That's a very fascinating book. I recommend it too. Okay, so another lady that has been very transformational for me, and I've learned so much in such a small book, is Shakti Gawain's Creative Visualization. And I have some of her other books here. I have Creating True Prosperity. I have Developing Intuition. I have The Path of Transformation. I have Creative Visualization. This should be on your shelf, no matter who you are and what religious belief you have, unless, of course, you're a Muslim and you don't believe that women should be writing books, or if you're any kind of religion like that. Outside of that, if you're able to accept a female woman teacher, this is a book that should be on your shelf. Trust me on that. There is so much just packed into this little tiny book that you will be amazed. It's one of the most transformational, most vital texts in the world, I think. Followed by Living in the Light would also be another one that I would say is very transformational, very worthwhile. A lot of interesting stuff in here. And again, not very thick. She also has the Relationship Handbook and Meditations. Any of these that you don't see the cover clearly enough, or I didn't hold it up well enough or whatever, just pause. I'm trying to announce each one as I go through. I started reading this Creating True Prosperity because I'm a big fan of another thing that I call, another sort of teaching called manifestation teachings, and that's like the law of attraction. Abraham Hicks is another channel, and they go along the manifestation teachings. And then there's some old school New Thought authors that I consider to be in that kind of group. So I was hoping that this would help me, and there's some good stuff in here, but I didn't get very far in it, and I don't know if I can recommend it yet. I have to go through all of these. I didn't even crack this. I do have intuitive or psychic abilities. I'm not sure to what extent. I'm not going to judge that. I'm trying to honor it, and every time I have an insight or a feeling. And then, of course, I wanted to go through Creative Visualization. I did finish reading that and Living in the Light, but I didn't get to it yet. Another thing I've got to work on is my empathic. I am an empath, I found out too, so I've got a book for that. I'll show you in just a second. But definitely, lady, that at least the Creative Visualization and Living in the Light should be on your shelf. Trust me on that one. You definitely want those books. So as I said, I was trying to learn a little bit about being an empath, to find out if I even was an empath, and according to the results of this, yeah, I'm an empath. And I was trying to read this. I got a little bit further into this, but I just didn't manage to finish it. But this is a book that seems to be pretty readable, and it's good support material if you are a very sensitive person, very sensitive to your environment, what people say, things going on around you. I'm not giving a very good definition of what an empath is, but if you're extra sensitive, if you would describe yourself as being extra sensitive, check out this book. It might help you. And you'll find out about a little more about yourself. Metahuman, Deepak Chopra, his new one, or Chopra, how you pronounce his last name. Sounded interesting. I did want to unleash my infinite potential and didn't get very far. Memory Craft by Lynn Kelly. She has another book as well. These have to do with the mind and memory, and I think she talks about the mind palace, which is just mentioned in the Sherlock Holmes writings. I always wanted to learn how to do that, and I didn't get around to it. But I had the book, I had a chance to read it, just didn't get anywhere. Super Attractor, which is Gabrielle Bernstein's new one. Again, a good writer, a good manifestation teacher. She goes from the perspective of man, my mind is just blanking tonight. Course in Miracles. She also talks a little bit about, I think she talks about Abraham Hicks and some other influences. Very readable, very, very enjoyable book, lots of good information. I'm not sure how I feel about this particular book, but her other ones I've enjoyed quite a lot. Definitely worth looking at. I've got Marianne Williamson's newest one, Politics of Love. Never even cracked it. This is one of the this is one of the channeled texts that I was talking about, Barbara Messiniak, and she talks about, or speaks through her, the Pleiadians. I believe that's how you pronounce or talk about it, but Path of Empowerment, I need to feel empowered, so I did start to read this, but again, didn't get very far. And the Dark Tower series. I started to read this, got through book 1 very quickly. Book 2 been struggling with, never even cracked this one yet. Now it's due back. But we all know who Stephen King is, and if you don't know who Stephen King is, well, check out a Stephen King book and you'll know who Stephen King is. And if you like Stephen King, then follow that up with the Dean Koontz. So, these books do not have to go back, so I can now put this bag away. I've got Your Tarot, Your Way by Barbara Moore and Ken Robinson, the Element. I was hoping this would help me find that thing that I can do. This is the help for finding the thing that you're passionate about, you can make money for. I don't know how to describe any better than that. I haven't gotten very far. And I was hoping that this would help me, and I still have some time to crack it, so maybe I will. And I have the Gilded Tarot deck along with the companion book, and this is another one of her books. And I was studying the tarot again briefly because I'm out in the RV, so I can take my tarot books out there because my folks don't want anything to do with that being, hard and fast Christians. Just about everybody in this house is a hard and fast Christian, but out in the RV I can have what I want. So I had a big pile of tarot books. This is one of the last stragglers. Haven't even cracked it, but her Gilded Tarot book's pretty good. So I don't know if I can recommend it or not. All right, now we'll get into the stuff that is stored in that box there generally. Some of these I had out in the RV and will probably get put back out in the RV because I had so many books to turn in. Some of I've read and I just keep in here. This is another channel text, Emmanuel's book by Pat Rodgast and Judith Stanton. I highly, highly, highly recommend this book. When I totaled my car, I somehow got a copy of this. I think I must have got it from the adult book swap, and it was like a giant hug embracing me. And it was just very encouraging and helped me through a really tough time in my life. Let me see if I can read you a passage. There's little drawings in here too, little line drawings. What are we really afraid of? You fear humiliation. You fear to be wrong. You fear that if your knowing is brought into your human experience, it will dissolve. You fear to trust truth. You fear to love in an imperfect world. Just an example of the kind of writing. There's just little tidbits like that in here. Some of them are a little longer. Most of them are fairly short. Definitely worth having on your shelf if you're okay with channel teachings because it is very encouraging, very loving, just a beautiful book. I just got a hold of this. I don't know anything about it. It has a poem in here by Thich Nhat Hanh and some other things. It ended up over at the church library somehow, and very fascinating to me. I am a big fan of the Native American type teachings. I don't know if that's what this is, grandmother spirit or a channel text or what it is. I read Black Elk Speaks, and that was a transformational book. This one intrigued me, so I grabbed it, and I'm looking at it now. Of course, I mentioned Seth. Here is Seth, Dreams and Projections of Consciousness. These books are very hard to read. They are like a little bite of something that immediately fills you full. You have to really chew and digest little bits of it at a time. It's just dense with material. But there's a lot of good stuff in here. This will not be just about dreams and projections of consciousness. That'll be the central theme. But there's a lot of stuff that'll be related to that will be talked about in here. I'll probably take this back out to the RV and have it out there with me. And that's by Jane Roberts, if I didn't say already. This book is another one that should be on your shelf, along with Taking the Leap or The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. This book is very thin, very easy to read. This book will change your life. It really will. And so will Taking or The Big Leap or Taking the Leap. Both of those are books that should be on your shelf. This book will help you in your process of learning how to love yourself. And I'll let you look up the other one because I don't remember all the details about it. I remember reading it, and it just kind of changed me. Along with Susan Jeffers' Feel the Fair and Do It Anyway. I read both of those around the same time. No religious or spiritual leanings too so much in these. They should be unoffensive to anybody. And a lot of good stuff in here. Of course, Carlos Castaneda, The Art of Dreaming. From this book, I learned how to look at my hands in my dreams and then learn to wake up from that and become lucid from that. I've since gotten out of the practice. I'd like to get back into it, but that technique came from, I think, this book and these teachings of this author. I don't know what will happen with him. I don't know if the accounts of his stuff that he does is true any more than I know the Dan Millman stuff, the Peaceful Warrior, is true, but I hope it is. It's a really fascinating account. Each book has so many wonderful, interesting things, but it's really out there. But good techniques for lucid dreaming in here. That one's going out to the RV since I ran out of stuff. This one I'll probably keep in here and tell myself that I'm going to read it, but I never do. Joseph Thor, Moonwalking with Einstein, Art and Science of Remembering Everything. So it's another one of those memory books. I keep telling myself I'll read it, and I never do. The Silva Mind Control Method by Jose Silva. I guess the guy is passed now, but I really want to go to one of those workshops. I use a 3-finger technique all the time, but I need to finish the book. As you can see, I'm very close, but I didn't get there yet. Very good book, worth looking at. I don't remember how I stumbled onto it. This is Think and Go Rich by Napoleon Hill. I picked this up somewhere. It was free. I just grabbed it because it's small, portable, easy to read, and good stuff in here. But this is not the original version of this. You want to get the version that was released near the turn of the century. That one will be unedited. It'll have some archaic references, but they took out some things that you don't want to have missing out of the book that make the book not as usable or as good as the original printing. So keep that in mind if you're looking into this. And also keep in mind that the original book this comes from is called The Law of Success, and it's about that thick. So Law of Success, if you can get the original printing of that, will be even better for you. But you have to go through a lot of reading. I don't call these guys manifestation teachers. This is more like success teachings. This and Maxwell Maltz, Psycho-Cybernetics. Those are some excellent books. When I first started my self-help path, I found some of these guys, and they were very helpful. I felt like I needed to pull this out of storage recently. I don't know why. It just hasn't helped me at all. Susan Hayward, Begin It Now. Just quotes in here from various people. Kind of encouraging, kind of spiritual. It claims to be a guide for the advanced soul. I don't know if I agree with that. That's what things look like inside there. I got this from the book swap, I think. That will stay in here. Teal Swan, The Completion Process. This one I'm still working through, but it is hard. She is a believer in something called fragmentation, and this is supposed to help you put yourself back together again, basically. Find those aspects of yourself that have been abandoned and need to be embraced and loved. She's an excellent teacher. I know there's a lot of controversy around her. Some people accuse her of being a cult, which is kind of funny considering she actually advises against cults and she tells you what to look for in a cult, and none of the stuff that you would imagine would be with a cult has anything to do with her. I think some people are just challenged by her and her statements. She's very direct and she has some definite opinions about suicide and stuff, but she teaches things that I don't see anybody else teaching, and I highly respect her and appreciate her. I wish she was able to answer me and talk to me. I asked her a question recently needing some help, but she didn't. You know, these spiritual teachers, they get rich, they get famous. Of course, they don't have a lot of free time anymore because now they're going around teaching people. They don't have time for you unless you have a paycheck. So what are you going to do? But still a recommended book. By Ron Katie, Loving What Is. This is going over what's called The Work. And I need to finish this. I need to go through it. I haven't done it yet. Some good stuff here, and if you can get a hold of one of our workshops, it's probably worth going to. A Course in Miracles. I've got a couple of versions of this. I wish that the people who print this would talk to the people who print Bibles, because the thin pages in here are just like your Christian Bible thin pages, but you can see right through to the other side, and it's very hard to read it. And all of their versions that I've seen of this have that issue. I'd like to find one that doesn't, but hopefully I'll start this up and go through it again. This is also very dense, very difficult to read, and I don't know how to explain any more of it than that, but it is a transformational text. It has actually transformed the lives of a lot of people, just not mine yet. Ramtha, J.Z. Knight, another channel text. And they also have another one about creating reality, or creating personal reality. I want to get it. I own this one and all the other ones you just saw. This is the white book. And this is an excellent text. I don't know about the history that's presented in here. It'd be interesting and fascinating if it was real. It seems to line up with what the Ascended Masters say in their books, and those were written at the turn of the century, back in the 1900s. Well, early 1900s, or maybe even mid. Somewhere between the early to the mid-1900s they were written. This one was, of course, written much more recently. She has and she might be a cult, but I don't know. I've never been there. I would know and I would be aware of what to look for if I went, because I do want to go. She does have a place just up north from where I am where she can teach people and train people, and they learn stuff and learn from this entity, or her, or both. And I would love to go there someday and just hang out for a while, maybe stay there, maybe take a workshop or class or something, get some training and see what I think about it. We'll see what happens. Put it on the to-do list. Now we're going to move into my writing. I have Writing for Visual Thinkers. This comes with a disc that I need to look at. I haven't gone through it yet. It looks interesting. I'm a visual thinker, so I was hoping this would help me. So right where you're sitting used to be is my writing desk. I used to have some books up here on writing, and I don't have that there anymore. I just have a Blender book on Blender up here by Brian Gumston, which I need to turn in tomorrow, by the way. And I have a book here on Poets Market. I can never keep a hold of these Blender books. Somebody always has a hold on it. I just need to buy it and stop messing around with that. Anyway, let's start in on the writing books. The Mindful Writer by Dinty W. Moore. This looks pretty interesting, but I haven't gotten very far with it. I kind of like these little texts like this. Take Joy, a book for writers by Jane Yolen. Again, looks interesting, but again, I haven't gotten very far with it. Still Writing by Danny Shapiro. This has the ragged edge I was telling you about. I love that. The feel of that. I love books like that. This was the natural thing to go to after Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott, which I just finished. The War of Art. This and his other book should be on your shelf. This is by Stephen or Stephen Pressfield. And this one will talk about your resistance and your fighting resistance and dealing with resistance in your writing. And it's funny and kind of in your face and confrontational. And it's just an enjoyable book and a good book for a writer to have. Or any artist, for that matter. I was hoping this would help me with trying to figure out my creative compass. Dan Millman's Sierra Prazada, The Creative Compass, but I don't think it's as good a book for what I was looking for as I thought it would be. I'm still trying to work through it. But I do like the works of Dan Millman. I've heard this is an excellent book, Elements of Fiction by Walter Mosley. I will read this. I swear I will read this before I turn it in. I got a bunch of Natalie Goldbergs. This one should be on your shelf. If You Are at All a Writer, Writing Down the Bones by Natalie Goldberg. Read this once, trying to get through it again. Then The Great Spring, and this is Writing Zen and the Zigzag Life by Natalie Goldberg. And Thunder and Lightning by Natalie Goldberg. She's an excellent writer, has excellent books on writing, definitely worth looking at if you're a writer. All right, now let's go on to some books that were sitting here that I would work on each day. I would consider working on these exercise books as part of the writing process, or just writing or editing or whatever. So I had Burn Wild by Christy Krug. Good little exercises in here. I really enjoyed this. I will come back to it. Fierce on the Page by Sage Cohen, who is a local author. And I like the attitude here, and each little thing is just a couple of pages long. It's really, each chapter, I guess you call it, is just a couple of pages long. It's a really nice book. I like it a lot. I thought I might get into video game writing because I like play video games. I thought maybe going into writing for video games would be an avenue I could look at. So I got this to look at. I haven't done much with it. All right, there are two of these books. There's Maps of the Imagination by Peter Turchi, and then he has a follow-up to this. This is very hard to read, very dense. Comes with a whole lot of these pictures and illustrations and all kinds of stuff in here. It's fun to read, but I just can't seem to get into it. This is one of the top of the list books for me. The Hero Is You by Kendra Levin. I think this is going over the Joseph Campbell kind of process of the hero's journey for writing. Zen and the Art of Writing by Ray Bradbury, which has nothing to do with Zen, unlike Natalie Goldberg, who probably has a lot to do with Zen, but still a very good book on writing from a fairly well-known author. Pen on Fire by Barbara DeMarco Barrett, another one that I was trying to get some encouragement in my writing with, haven't done anything with it. Pep Talks, Warnings, and Screeds by George Singleton. Felicia Day, Embrace Your Weird. I like this one, Shooting Yourself in the Head for Fun and Profit by Lucy A. Snyder. This one sounds kind of fun, along with the Embrace Your Weird, so those are top of my list. Story Sparks by Denise Jaden. Haven't done anything with this yet. I'd Rather Be Writing by Marcia Golub. I don't know anything about it. I love the title of this one, Johnny D. Cole, Good Naked. Looks good on the whole writing thing. I've got a couple of these books. So I got a couple of these books on writing and the brain, or creativity in writing, and I got Wired to Create by Scott Barry Kaufman and Carolyn Gregoire. And I got Fire Up Your Writing Brain by Susan Reynolds. They both look very fascinating. I've always liked when I was a kid, I liked to take things apart and figure out how it works. And this is kind of that thing, like figuring out how something works. But I didn't do anything with them yet. Write Smart, Write Happy by Cheryl St. John. And Soul at the White Heat by Joyce Carol Oates. This one I thought was going to have a lot more than it did of what I wanted. I don't know how to explain that, but it wasn't quite what I thought it was going to be, but still, I need to crack it and see what I can do with it, do a little more than what I've done. So in my bag, I have the Montauk Project by Preston B. Nichols. This is one of those conspiracy kind of things. This guy has some interesting stuff to say. He has some proof to back it up. I don't know if it's real. It's fascinating. I have not gotten any further than where I ended up about halfway into the book. I don't know what happened. I just stopped reading it. But it's definitely worth looking at. I'd love to have more people have a copy of this in their house, because if what he's talking about here is true, there are people trying to suppress that information, and the only way to keep them from succeeding is to make sure that the book is in circulation and people have it. I have Stephen King, The Drawing of the Three. This is the one I'm struggling with of the Dark Tower series. Hopefully I can get into it because we're getting near October, and I love scary books around October. So this is, I somehow lost a hold of this and got on the other reading that on the floor. This is Ursula Le Guin. She recently passed, another local author. This is a Conversations on Writing. It's one of her last books, and I'd like to get through this and see what it has to say. Her other book, Steering the Craft on Writing, is another one that I would recommend you have on your shelf. Anybody that's okay with a woman writer teaching them how to write and it's into writing and wants information on writing, Steering the Craft is a highly recommended text you should have. As well as Stephen King's On Writing, which I don't have right here. The Nature of Personal Reality. This is another one of the Jane Roberts Seth books. And again, very dense, very hard to read and process, but there are so many things in here that'll just open your eyes and expand your mind, get you to see things in a different way. It's really shocking what you'll learn. I've got a couple of James Scott Bell books on writing I need to finish. I've got The Mental Game of Writing, and I got Just Right. Very funny, kind of in-your-face conversational author, but very funny. I like the guy a lot. I read one of his other books recently on writing, and I want to finish these two. This one is very challenging. This is very hard to go through. The exercises in here are very painful. I have this, and I have Born to be a Unicorn journal to go with it, where I'm filling it out for all the exercises. This is by Mark Matasek. It's called Writing to Awaken. This book, I don't know if it's good or bad yet, but it's supposed to have a definite transformational effect on a person, and I am trying to change my life, change things about myself. And if anything's going to help me and help me embrace my writing, this will be it. So that's why that's there. Autobiography of a Yogi by, don't expect me to pronounce it, Paramahansa Yogananda. Anyway, this is interesting, especially about the guru powers, about the guru that's like shows up to the dad and the son and actually is located somewhere else at the same time. I don't know if any of it's true. Again, I hope that, like the Dan Millman and the Carlos Castaneda, that it's true, but I don't know. But it's interesting, and I hope to finish it. Jane Lyle Tarot. This book's kind of hard to find. Just got through wrapping it up. Has some things in the back I don't want to lose track of. Pretty good book on the tarot. And some interesting decks that she shows in here. I've got my poetry book. This is where some of the poems you see in Blessed Writer will come from. I had another one before this. I need to get another one here pretty soon. This is about getting full here. The best I could find at the time. And I have a couple of notebooks. This is Before the Decision. And my vlog video will go over that more. But this is before my decision. And after I decided to renounce suicide and commit forward life, I started this new journal. And this is the one I've been working through with some other stuff now. Along with a book that I will go over in the next episode of Bookworms Bower, talking about Shaman Durek's book, Spirit Hacking. So that concludes this episode of Bookworms Bower, What's on My Shelf. And now you've seen what's on my shelf, with the exception of Poets Market 2020. Now you've seen everything on my shelf. I got books everywhere. If you like this video, give it a thumb up. If you didn't, give it a thumb down. If you give it a thumb down, be sure to let me know what I can do to improve and make it better. Give me some feedback. Comments if you got them. Suggestions if you got them. Let's get a dialogue going. Subscribe if you want more videos like this. Do you want to see more episodes of this? Once a month feature showing you the books that I have on my shelf. And do you like the idea of once a week episode where I talk about a particular book and go over it more thoroughly? Does that all sound pretty cool, or do you want something else? Do you have a book you want me to look at? Leave a comment below, let me know. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.